Hello. Hola. Najon. And bonjour. Miss Bobette is going to read you a book today. This book is called Cinderella. Here she is. It's the front of the book, the back of the book, and the spine. What do you see? That's her shoe. The spine holds all the pages together. And this book was written and illustrated by Fred Crump Jr. Beautiful illustrations. Fred Crump did a beautiful job. Look at those pretty pictures with all the colors. This book is called Cinderella. Once long ago in a faraway kingdom, there lived a lovely young girl named Ella. Her father died, and she had become little more than a servant in her own home. Her stepmother was harsh and demanding, and her stepsisters treated her so unfairly. One of her chores was cleaning the ashes and cinders from the fireplace, and so her rude stepsisters began calling her Cinderella. But through it all, Cinderella kept her manners and tried to hold back her tears. Aww. Her stepsisters and her stepmother were so rude and mean to her. All she had to do was clean all day. One day, while Cinderella was in the village doing the marketing, she shopped too. She saw a group of people reading a proclamation. She went closer and it read, Royal Birthday Ball. His Imperial Highness King Albert III invites his loyal subjects to a ball to celebrate his 21st birthday of Prince Alex to be held at 9 p.m. the evening of October the 13th at the Royal Palace. Oh, that is tomorrow night, she said. Perhaps I can patch up one of my old dresses and borrow some beads and a ribbon from my stepsisters, and we can all go to the ball together. Cinderella was excited. But alas, when the ladies at home heard about the ball, all became chaos. Drusilla and Priscilla demanded first one dress be prepared, then another and another. Their shoes had to be cleaned and polished, hair ribbons curled, dozens of petticoats starched and ironed, wigs combed out, and many buckets of hot bath water had to be carried, and her stepmother had an even longer list of demands. And so, by the evening of the ball, Cinderella had found no time to prepare for herself, her work, or to work on her own gown. Aww. Oh dear, said stepmother, when she saw Cinderella all ragged and bedraggled on the stairs. The carriage is here, and we cannot wait for you. You really must learn not to dawdle so, my dear. Perhaps you can be ready on time for the next ball. If she starts now, laughed Drusilla, and then, giggling and glittering in her grand finery, the three ladies swept out the door. Oh, they left Cinderella. Some of the tears Cinderella had been holding back for so long trickled down her cheeks. Look at Cinderella. She's sad they're going to the ball without her. After all that work she did. Cinderella went to the kitchen and sank down on the bench by the fireplace. Well, she said sadly to the broom she was holding, I don't guess you would care to dance with a ragtag like me, would you? Wouldn't you prefer to dance with a prince? Said a tinkling little voice as a soft glow filled the room. And Cinderella looked up to see a tiny little fairy with a sparkly wand. Oh, who are you? She asked in a surprised voice. But just look at me and no buts, twittered the little fairy. Now we must go out into the garden and gather a few things, and you can bring that pumpkin by the fireplace. There's the pumpkin. She told her to bring the pumpkin outside with her. I wonder what's going to happen next. Put the pumpkin on the ground, said the fairy godmother. There's the pumpkin. And by the rock, you will find 2 mice. By the well, 2 lizards. And under that mushroom, a frog. Bring them. There they are. The mice, the lizards, and the frog. Cinderella did as she was told. Then the fairy pointed her magic wand and said, "Cockle shells and macaronis, you 2 mice will turn into ponies. Golden fruit, I tap you, thumpkin. Be a carriage, not a pumpkin. With a spell of ancient wizards, I make 2 footmen out of lizards. And 1 more change, my pollywog, to a coachman from a frog." And with a snap, crackle, pop, and the twinkle of stardust, there stood a most magnificent carriage, 2 prancing ponies, a coachman, and 2 splendid footmen. Cinderella was delighted and speechless. Ooh. "And now, my dear," said the fairy godmother, "let us see if I have enough sparkle left to create a ball gown. Close your eyes," she said. Then she pointed her wand at Cinderella and sang, "Bring us stars from far off places, and brilliant jewels and fancy laces, and make of these a new creation, a dress to be a great sensation. And then for such a pretty lass, we need some slippers made of glass." There was a twinkle of light and a twinkle of magical music, and Cinderella opened her eyes, wearing a most beautiful glittering ball gown. "Oh, it is all too marvelous," said Cinderella. "How can I ever thank you?" "By remembering, my dear," she said, "that the magic wears off at midnight. You must leave before the clock tolls 12. Did you hear that? She's got to be home by 12. All of the magic wears off at 12 midnight. There she is in the carriage going to that pretty castle. "Now, into the carriage and off you go," said the fairy. "And do remember," she said, "I will watch the clock," laughed Cinderella, and the magic carriage raced off into the night. When they reached the castle, it was aglow with many lights, and from within came the strains of beautiful music. When Cinderella reached the front steps, she was ushered by the dazzled royal doorman to the ballroom. She paused at the curtained entrance, and a hush spread over the room as all eyes turned to look at her. Prince Alex had until this moment refused to dance, but at his first sight of Cinderella, he moved across the floor as if in a trance. As he took her hand and led her into the ballroom, the royal orchestra began a stately waltz. From that moment on, he had eyes for no other. Because she's beautiful. The whispers and gossip raced through the room. She is a princess in disguise. She's the daughter of a wealthy merchant. She's a queen of Persia, everyone said, but no one, not even her stepmother and stepsisters, recognized the dazzling guest as Cinderella. And as they danced the night away together, they felt the magic of love. You see her sisters and the stepmama. They feel jealous. That's what they're feeling. They're feeling jealousy. The time passed swiftly, and then the village clock began to strike the hour of midnight. Without a word or glance back, Cinderella left the prince and ran quickly out of the castle and down the stairs. The puzzled prince gave chase and called after her. "Wait, I do not even know your name," he said. Just then she lost one of the glass slippers, but she still ran. See, she left her glass slipper behind. She was running so fast, she ran right out of her shoe. The prince paused to pick up the slipper, and when he looked again, the beautiful girl was nowhere in sight. But had he looked more closely, at the bottom of the palace steps, there was a ragged serving maid, a shattered pumpkin, 2 mice, 2 lizards, and a frog. The magic was over. Cinderella gathered up the little animals in her apron and trudged home. The magic was over. It was 12 midnight. The next day, the kingdom was in a turmoil. The king issued a royal proclamation that Prince Alex would marry the young lady whose foot could fit the glass slipper, and the prince himself went from house to house, searching for the mysterious owner of the lost shoe. When he came to Cinderella's house, the stepsisters tried desperately to squeeze their clodhopper foot into the delicate slipper, but neither could manage more than a few toes. Cinderella came down the stairs and said, "Let me try, please." Look at that sister trying to put her big old foot in that glass slipper. It did not fit. And of course, the slipper fit perfectly. Then, as everyone stood around, open mouthed, the fairy godmother swooped down the chimney and into the room. "Well, let us see now," she said in her tinkly little voice, "if I can do that trick again." And with a wave of her wand, Cinderella was once more transformed into a dazzling vision. The stepmother screeched and swooned, and Drusilla and Priscilla were left speechless. Then the prince and Cinderella left in his carriage and lived happily ever after. The end. I hope you like this story of Cinderella. You may have seen the movie, I'm not sure. But this is the book of Cinderella, and it's one of my favorites. You know, I only pick my favorite books. So I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, see you later, alligators.